Welcome back to I Need a Coach, where we interview top coaches, authors, experts, and speakers, get their insights on how they're building their business, and give you some ideas on building yours. My name's Adam Packard, and for the last 7 years, we've done business development and marketing for over 500 coaches and consultants. Today's guest is Mark Herschberg, and Mark is a fractional chief technical officer, has multiple businesses, but he created an app called Brain Bump, and he's going to share what this app is, who it's for. It's for course creators, it's for authors, it's for trainers, and people that want to consume knowledge and a much better way to retain it. So you're going to enjoy this podcast, and make sure you check out Brain Bump. Okay, welcome back to I Need a Coach. Today I am joined by Mark Herschberg. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, I know we talked a few months ago and had to reschedule, so I appreciate your patience on that. But give the audience a little taste into kind of who you are and who you help right now. I know you've got a few different businesses, but give a little context into some of your background and expertise.
Sure. I do a couple different things. My day job, I am a fractional CTO. Companies bring me in when they say we have tech problems. We need some executive level help. We probably don't need someone full time. And that might be just because they're not a pure tech company. Could be they need an interim person while they're looking for that replacement. Various reasons. Might just be some short-term consulting. But I wound up, as I went through my journey to becoming a CTO and a fractional CTO, I wound up doing a couple other things. I got pulled into teaching at MIT a class on professional development. We teach leadership, communications, team building, networking, negotiating, all the stuff we know we need that no one actually teaches you. And having done that for over 2 decades, I wrote the book, The Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success That No One Taught You. And I now do corporate speaking. I speak at companies and conferences on those topics. And then, having built the book, I said, there's a problem with books. There's a problem with speaking, with podcasts. They're all great tools. I'm excited for podcasts like this and books like mine. But where you read information isn't where you need information. We hear something on a great podcast like this, but you're probably thinking, well, I'm in the middle of exercising or driving to work. I hope I remember this 2 days from now. And so we created Brain Bump to help people retain and use what they get from great shows like this or books like mine or other talks or coaches. So I have 3 different brands.
Got it. That's interesting. So let's talk about MIT for a second, because not too often do people get called into MIT to teach a course or class. So how did that come about?
This is a great example of, even though I talk about you need to have a plan with your career, things happen along the way and why we should be generous, as you are with this show and all the other resources you provide. So I was working at a company and I recognized the people I was hiring were missing these skills. I couldn't find in the people I was interviewing. I began to build a program to train up the people I hired. And as I was doing this, I heard MIT got similar feedback. Companies that hire MIT alums were saying, we are looking for these skills and can't find it. Not just in engineers, not just in your students, not just college students, but universally, we can't find these skills. And MIT, being responsive, said, oh, okay, well, we should be teaching this if this is what you want and need. And when they were beginning to put that program together, I heard about it, and I reached out and just said, hey, I've developed some material. Maybe this would help you. Happy to give it to you. Best of luck. I said, wait a second, not so fast. Thank you for the material, but we need more. Please stay and help us create more material. So, okay, so I spent a couple of weeks. We're developing some additional modules. It's not a lecture-based class. It's interactive. And as I did that, I said, okay, well, glad I could be of help. Best of luck. And I said, nope, once again, you can't leave. We'd like you to help co-teach. We have these great professors, world-class professors from the School of Engineering, from Sloan, but they have an academic point of view and they wanted practitioners. Said, we need you to stay and let's bring in other practitioners like yourself and we'll have this kind of dual perspective for our students, the academic research and the practitioners. That was over 20 years ago and one of the best things that ever happened to me.
That's awesome. So did the book come out after that or before that?
The book came out after I started teaching over 20 years ago. And it was just a few years ago. At the time we're recording this, my book is about 3 years old. I originally thought, well, let me write down notes for the students because again, it's an interactive class. They're not taking notes and I know they keep forgetting what we're telling them. So I thought I'll write up 10 pages of notes, just a handout for our students. 10 pages became 20, 40, 80. And once it passed 100, I said, wow, this is not a set of notes. This is a book. Well, if I'm going to do a book, it shouldn't be for engineering undergrads. We know these are universal skills. So I just generalized the language and I pulled in examples, not just from engineering, but from different disciplines. So it really applies to any type of white collar office worker.
Got it. How do you manage your schedule between all the things that you're doing currently?
It's a lot of juggling, but I kind of like it. And if you're an executive or honestly, if you're a coach, that's a lot of your day because you jump from one client, one area of focus, and then big context switch to a totally different topic and subject. And it might be for coaches, you're spending time doing some marketing and then you're with one client and then you do a bunch of emails. Then you're with another client. Then you're meeting about something else that might pay off down the road. And it's a lot of one to the next. But that's how I live my life, and I kind of enjoy the variety.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I just jump from one client call to a prospecting call to a podcast to it's just things change very quickly in the business. So in the Career Toolkit book, let's kind of dive into that a little bit. So is there a framework that you created? What's the format of it? And can you give us any nuggets that might be helpful for who's the audience for that book too? Who's the perfect person that would want to pick that up?
The audience, it's really broadly people, I say about 20 to 40, although a lot of our comments on Amazon are people saying they're in their 40s or 50s or older and say, I wish I had this book 20 years ago. The book itself, 10 chapters, 10 skills. Now, the choice of 10 is somewhat arbitrary. You'll see lists that put them into 5 skills or 50 skills. We broke them down into 10 just for convenience. The 10 skills, the 10 chapters. Each chapter stands alone, so you can jump right to a chapter, as I'll explain in a moment. So the 10 chapters, section 1, 3 chapters, career planning, how to create and execute a career plan. And by the way, even if you're a coach or a solo practitioner, you need a career plan. Your title might not change, but your skill development certainly needs to continue, and that's part of your career plan. Chapter 2, working effectively. Things like understanding corporate culture, managing your manager. Chapter 3 is interviewing. Now, many of us have learned how to be a candidate, but if you are in a company, you need to know how to hire other people. We're often involved and we've had no training how to do that. The second section on leadership and management, there's a chapter on leadership, one on the people side of management, and another chapter on the process side of management. And then the final 4 chapters, communication, networking, negotiations, and ethics. And it's written, as I said, you can jump to a chapter. You might say, I really need to get better at negotiating. So you're going to jump right to chapter 9, skip the first 8, go to chapter 9. Each chapter has a mental shift, how to look at the skill in a new way, concrete, actionable things you can do to be more effective, and then takeaways and next steps if you want to go further. And so I'm happy to dive into any of those topics.
Yeah, no. So it's a great resource. It's, you bring up when I was a manager at a company and I had to interview people, I had no idea what I was doing. They just said, interview this new candidate and see if they're a good fit. Okay, no idea. We'll just have a conversation and see where it goes. So where did the idea for the brain bump come from? Was that just you, or were you in the shower, or would you wake up in the middle of the night and have this idea and just jot it down on your phone, or where'd the inspiration come from? And tell us more about that.
It was a confluence of a few things. I have read lots of business books, and you read it and say, okay, this is great, this is helpful, and then it fades from memory. And I'll be having a conversation a few months later and thinking, oh, there was this point in this book. I can't remember where in the book. I don't remember the details, but had a really good point about this. Oh, I wish I could remember it. But of course, I don't want to have to dig through the book to find it. Now, it's gotten a little easier that if you're using an ebook, you can have highlights, but you still have to search through the highlights. And if you think about what's happened lately, there's a whole bunch of note-taking tools over the past 10 years. Very easy to take notes. The key is not taking notes, but the retrieval. So we'll take networking as an example, because I teach this to my students. They go, okay, yeah, this is great, but they're not going to a networking event right after class. It will be weeks or months and they'll have forgotten it. I kept thinking, how can I get this to them when they need it? How do I put it in their pocket? So that was the other part of the inspiration. So here's how it works. I take the content from my book. I, the author, take the key ideas. It's as if I went through with a highlighter saying, here's the key points I want you to remember. I put that onto the server, the BrainBump server, and then anyone with the app, and this is all free, by the way. Anyone with the app, they get the app for free, and they download the tips from my book for free. We don't say you have to show that you bought the book. So now they have all the tips in their pocket, and it's tagged by topic. So now, as they're walking into a conference and thinking, oh, there were those great networking tips, I wish I could remember them, you pull the phone out of your pocket, you open the app, and you tap networking, because everything is tagged. Think like hashtags by topic. So you hit networking, and there's all the networking tips. Maybe all the tips from my book, maybe all the tips from all the other books and podcasts you wanted on there. And you have them right in front of you. You quickly just flip through it and say, okay, right, remember to do this. And here's a good technique. Or here's an opening question to talk to a stranger. Great, got it, ready to go. So you have the information just in time. And the key, because again, we said, well, you could do highlights in a Kindle book, but if you had to pull that up, that's going to take you 30 seconds or more. And most people will give up. It's kind of like the web page. If the web page doesn't load in 5 seconds, people give up. So our key driver was you need to be able to get the information you need in under 7 seconds. So you can do that just in time. Now there's another version, which is, again, we know it fades away. You're probably going to forget this podcast episode in a week and all the advice we have. I know there's been great advice on your prior shows. So what if we could help you remember by using spaced repetition? But of course, you're an adult. There's no test. You're not going to sit there with flashcards and study the episode. What we do is effectively a daily affirmation. So you say, I want this type of content reminded to me at this time. So using the app, you might be a new manager, and there are management tips in my book. So you say at 9 a.m. every day, I want to get one of those management tips. That just helps keep it top of mind. You don't even need to open the app. And then, by the way, at 6 p.m., your marriage might be on the rocks. Your spouse is saying you're not focused on our marriage. So you get a marriage tip at 6 p.m. without opening the app. Because the key is if you got the marriage tip at 9 a.m. and the management tip at 6 p.m., your brain will say, no, this isn't relevant for where I am. Ignore it, and you lose it. But by giving you the right information at the right time, you retain, you say, this is relevant. This is just what I need. It's going to stay sticky. You're going to remember it and you're going to use it. And the coach or the author or the podcaster has their brand associated. So you'll remember their brand too. That's why they want to put their stuff into our app.
So let's talk about that for a second. So I have the app. Do I have to upload? Is it books that I have on Kindle? Is it just my stuff? How do you get the library of content on there?
We go to the content creators, the authors, speakers, podcasters, other people with content, and say, you should put your content on the app. Your audience will better retain and use it. You will have new people discovering your content on the app. People will share it. We have great social media sharing tools. And all of this will help your brand. It's also, by the way, it's hyperlinked. And this is also key, because when you think about your podcast, for example, you have evergreen content. The advice in podcast number 2 will be good 3 years from now. But most people looking at a podcast or a blog are saying, I don't want to dig through 3 years of stuff to find what's relevant. It's ordered chronologically. Because we order by topic, someone might say, I need that leadership advice or networking advice or whatever the topic is. And it's going to come up, whether it's from 2 days ago or the episodes from 2 years ago. And then they're going to say, okay, that's good. You know what? I want to hear that full podcast. I want to read that whole article. They're going to click through, and that drives traffic to your evergreen back catalog that otherwise people aren't discovering. So the content creators are incentivized to put the tips, the takeaways from their public content onto the app. Now, you as an app user can get all the free content that these folks have put on there. Or you might say you don't yet have what I want, because we know there's millions of books and podcasts. We don't have them all. So you can add your own. You can even import Kindle highlights. If you export the file from Kindle, you can import it into our app and you'll have a local copy for yourself. So those are the two modes of getting the information.
Interesting. So I'm an author. I have a book. I take my nuggets from my book. I'm not putting my entire book on this platform. It's just the highlights. Got it. How many resources, books do you have on the app currently?
We've got a few score at the time of our recording in the spring of 2024. We are adding new ones every month. So the app came out really about a year ago, and it was in beta. We had some content. We were getting feedback from the content creators and the app users. Did a big release in December of 2023. And now in 2024, we're doing a huge push to just add as much content as quickly as we can. So every month, it's more than the last.
Awesome. Very cool. I know I downloaded it, but I need to get in there and play around a little bit more. So what was the vision behind creating this? Is this just like a passion project? Is this something that you're trying to monetize in the future? Or is this just more of this is a great tool that people need to have?
This is a passion project to make the world better. It is free to download the app. It is free to get the content on there. It is free for content creators to put their content on there. It is free for everyone except me, because I pay development costs and hosting costs.
Right.
But this is how I can help make the world better. If people can better utilize and retain information, it makes them more effective. And I think it makes the world a better place.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. So what's the goal for this year and beyond in kind of all your businesses? How do you kind of prioritize building out the content for the app and generating users? And then you've got your fractional CTO work that you're doing. You've got your book and MIT. So how do you balance your time, and where's kind of the priority for 2024?
Good question. It is a lot. Certainly my consulting, pretty important. That's what brings in the funds that help to support the brain bump work. So I do put a lot of emphasis on that. With the book, I do corporate speaking. And so I have different companies reach out and they'll bring me in for corporate training or for conferences to speak at those, and hope to continue to do those. Brain bump helps me there because I can give the audience a takeaway. Why I love it. Audiences want the content. Some of them say, can you give me your slides? And as a speaker, I'm hesitant to hand my slides out. But now I can say, you're going to get everything from this talk. It will be in your pocket, but it's not, here are the slides. And so it's a win for both. But I'm hoping to do more speaking this year. I have some exciting trips coming up, domestic and international. And then for Brain Bump, it is, as I can put money into more development, we'll continue to roll out features. But content-wise, it is just reaching as many content creators as we can find. So I'm looking forward to getting your content on there. And hopefully other people listening to the show will say, yeah, I'd love to get my content on there. I want to get the exposure. I want my audience to remember it. And what we find is when you put your book on there, for example, folks are going to come, your audience will hear, oh, I can get your stuff and it's a great book. They're going to come and look at your book. And then they're going to look around and say, what else is on the app? And they'll find someone else's podcast. And when someone else puts her blog on there, her audience will come for the blog. But guess what? They're going to next discover your book. So what we find is the more content we have, the larger the audience overall, and the better it is for everyone. It's like the stone soup parable. The more we throw in, just the better it gets for everyone involved.
So is it really more designed for self-improvement, personal development? You don't have like fiction books on there?
This doesn't work for fiction. It is business, self-help, personal development, very broad. Now, we have been, at the time you and I are recording in the spring of 2024, we are more business, entrepreneurship, marketing, self-help. I'd like to expand beyond that. We said we need to start with kind of one area, which was more businessy, but we do want to expand into relationships and parenting and marriage and these other topics. I'm talking to one person who does dog training. Okay, fantastic. We really want to get into these other areas. So we're going to expand that way, just as broadly as quick as possible. For fiction, I have this whole other talk on how fiction will evolve. And I think they will need apps, but not this type of app. This is really designed for nonfiction content.
How do you screen quality content versus just having content?
The good side of being smaller, I said we have a few score right now. It's not like we have 100 people a day saying, put my content on there. I hope to have that problem one day, but today it's small, so I can go through and make sure it's quality content. And typically what we're finding, as I said, it's free, but there's a little bit of a time cost. If you have a book, it's going to take you an hour or two to pull out those quotes, to get it set up to put on there. Now, the upside to this is, unlike social media, you don't have to go back every day. So whereas you would have spent that hour or two over a year, you're doing it in a single session. And when you're done, you're done. And by the way, if you want to use this as your social media post, because you've just organized all your key ideas, now they're ready to be shared on social media. So you get all this help. You're just doing the prep work ahead of time. But what we find is the people with low quality content usually say, oh, I don't know if I want to spend an hour doing that. And that scares them away. So already the people who come to us tend to have the better quality content. But if we see an issue, we're not going to put it on there, because as you point out, good quality content is key for making people want to use the app and discover what new content is there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So if you're a course creator, author, speaker, have tons of YouTube videos, podcasts, blogs, articles, how do they find you, and how do they get their stuff on the app?
You can go to our website. Now, the app BrainBump is freely available on Android and iPhone. But if you go to our website, brainbumpapp.com, think BrainBump, nudge for your noggin. So if you go to brainbumpapp.com, at the bottom of the page, there's a form for content creators, for all the people you named and more. Just fill it out. It takes 30 seconds. Just give us your name, your website, your email. Tell us what your content is about, and we will be in touch. We'll take a look. I suspect, knowing the quality of your audience, it's going to be good quality content. And so we'll be in touch. We'll talk about how we can get you on there, no cost, and you're going to stay sticky with your audience. So you can do that at brainbumpapp.com.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, and hopefully drive a lot of users your way here and pump up the platform, get some more content on there. Anything else you want to share with the audience before we call it a day? I'm excited to dive into the BrainBump a little bit more. After we had our first conversation, I took a 5-minute look into the app. Didn't have time to really go through it, but I've got a lot of people I can definitely make introductions for you and drive people your way.
I would say the key for both content creators and content consumers is to remember that we all get busy. And so all the information we're trying to consume, it's hard to keep it in mind, and especially when it happens geotemporally distant from where we need it. You get that leadership advice with your coach today because you have a meeting this afternoon at 2 p.m. But if it's not applicable for the next week or two, in the meantime, you have a bunch of fires, you have some personal issues, you got all a bunch of other things that get in your way, and it starts to fade from memory. So the key, by having this spaced repetition, it helps keep it fresh in your mind. It helps make it stay sticky. Again, it's a win for both people. I have a whole talk where I speak about this is the future of media. BrainBump is one way to do this, but we will see more ways where we basically deliver the right content at the right time in the right place. And that's what's going to help us get the most out of the time we invest in learning and improvement. And again, it helps coaches and their audiences.
That's awesome. Mark, thank you so much for sharing and for coming on the show. I'm excited to dive into this and drive some people your way. And if there's anything else we can do to help promote, happy to do that. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of I Need a Coach. If you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate your dedication. Putting this podcast together takes a lot of time and energy. And in return, we only ask one thing, which is if you could please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps our show get in front of more people so we can help more people. This is Adam Packard signing off. Keep coaching, keep thriving, and see you in the next episode.